Kin and Capital. Kin and Capital. Kin and Capital.
Hello and welcome back to the Kin and Capital podcast. I'm your host, Mike, along with my bros, Christian, Chris, and Alexis, where we focus on wealth, growth, and family. Fellas, how we doing today?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, same here. This episode is going to focus on finding the balance between customers, direct reports, and leadership, which I think is kind of huge because we've had some experience, me and Chris, just in the past few weeks where a couple things have come up that were like, yeah, we should probably talk about this because they're interesting situations. There are times where the balance between both leadership and expectations by the customer can get strained, which is kind of where those situations came from. So let's kick things off. Big bro, you're the most experienced leader among us. What are some challenges that come with managing direct reports?
Man, this is really good. Deep question. I think one of the main things that getting into management, you have to realize that you have to find that balance between what you have to let your team know how are they contributing to our customer base, right?
Yeah.
They have to understand how they play a important factor in the organizational goals of the company.
Yeah.
If there's miscommunication there, or if there's something missing there, if there's a gap, then you're going to have your team is not going to understand what leadership is trying to put forth with. You know what I mean? So it's really important as a manager that you have to do a very good job, find that fine line of how you can kind of let them know, like, hey, these are the organizational goals from the overall company, and this is how we play a role into that.
Yeah.
I think once you figure out how to tie the two together, then I think managing your direct reports in a way that they understand where senior leadership is coming from. We're like, hey, we want you guys to implement this within 6 weeks. What? What do you mean in 6 weeks? But we got all this other stuff.
Right.
And if they respond like that, they don't understand the big picture.
Yeah.
So it's really important as a manager that you have to be able to articulate what that big picture is so they can understand and how they contribute to it. Right.
Yeah.
Once they understand where their contributions are to the organizational goals as a whole, then it'll be easier as a manager to really move forward on some of those initiatives that senior leadership or the company is trying to put forth, right?
So basically, having the communication is going to be key to like setting expectations.
Definitely.
Okay,
Setting
that makes
expectations
sense.
is definitely key. I mean, I get that a lot. Like, what's the direction? What's the direction? What are the expectations? What's the end goal? The end goal is important.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said about working with ambiguity, and there's as a leader, whether it's a manager, if you're a lead, or you have a high position at your company, there's an expectation that, hey, we pay you enough money, you should be able to know how to navigate through ambiguity, right? If the direction's not clear enough from senior leadership or from the company, you should be able to kind of take what you have and kind of just run with it. But there also is something to be said to where you still need to provide direction for your employees as a manager, right? They still need something. Like, what's the end goal?
Right.
Like, we can navigate as much as we can with this ambiguity, but what is the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
I think it's very important to let your team know what the end goal is. What are we trying to accomplish? And then they'll be able to move forward with that.
We're going to come back to that because that leads into something we're going to discuss later. And I'm glad you touched on it. So, like, when it comes to direct reports, there's a lot that comes with like one-on-ones. So, managing the expectations within the one-on-one meetings, right? Like, now, in the sense that we're talking about, like, this is more like a corporate thing. Like, you might not have that everywhere, probably where you're working or something like that. But as far as like the corporate world works, like one-on-ones are very pivotal to where you have to take advantage of them.
Yes.
And so, like, when you're talking to your direct reports and you're trying to create these one-on-ones, and what are you basically trying to get out of those one-on-ones? Like,
They
what is
own
the
their
end result?
career.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I kind of had to reassess myself as a leader is I can't lead them down their career path for them.
Right.
They own their career. I can guide you, provide
Hmm.
you tips, advice. I can hook you up with pair you with resources kind of that can kind of help you on your path,
Hmm.
but it's your career,
Yeah.
right? So as a manager, I said I schedule the time, 30-minute block for a one-on-one, but it's up to you to bring to me what you're working on, what you're trying to accomplish, what your end goals, what are your career aspirations.
Right.
If you don't bring that to the table, the one-on-one may last 10, 15 minutes. But me as a manager, I don't let that happen. And every manager is different.
Yeah.
So I try to bring things out. I ask open-ended questions. So one thing that I try to incorporate in my leadership style now is what I did before was I tried to lead the conversation. If I seen that there was a gap or if they didn't have a lot to talk about, I start leading the conversation. Oh, well, what about this? Or what about this? Or have you thought about this? And they're like, oh, I never thought about that. I could be interested in that. Well, are you really interested or are you just saying that because I brought it to the table?
Right.
Now what I'm doing is I'm letting them talk and I'm asking those open-ended questions more like, so where do you see yourself doing within the next year? What do you want to do? What do you want from this? Let them start opening up, having
Hmm.
and you know what I'm saying? And or like if they were involved with a project, like, hey, I noticed this happened. What are your thoughts on that? Let them start
Yeah.
opening it up. And that way they're leading the conversation. They're starting to understand where they want to go in their career. And if there's like some lessons learned and something they've worked on, they're like, oh, I did make a mistake right there. This is how I should have approached it. So that's something I had to do for myself is instead of me leading those one-on-ones and those conversations, I'm putting it back in their court
Yeah.
because it's their career. I'm here to provide support and to provide you the resources you need to excel, but it's your career. I don't want to force you to do something you're not really ready for.
So when it comes to like, the feedback that you've gotten so far, like how are they responding to your style now versus the way you were attempting it in
I
the
just started.
beginning?
I just switched
Oh,
it.
you just
I just switched it.
okay,
So
okay,
I'll get back to you on that. But I
okay,
will say that I have started seeing that they are opening up more.
okay.
And I'm not the one. So here's the thing that they don't tell you about management. We have a tendency because people who get into management, they were at some point you were a high performer at your period, whether you were an engineer or whatever you do, you were a high
Mm,
performer. You're
right.
used to taking the reins and running with it. As a manager and getting into leadership, we have to step back, because so often that I just want to take charge
Right.
and be like, okay, let me lead this conversation. But that's not what I'm here. I'm only here to provide support. You have to be the one leading that conversation. You have to be the one taking lead on your career.
Mm,
So I'm starting to notice now. I just started actually this past week, trying to just sit back and just not. I'm trying to restrain myself. My mentor kind of told me, it was like, man, you got to learn how to how to restrain yourself from when to jump in. Because a lot of times when people are talking, if they're asking me questions or anything, or if I see that there's a gap, they don't have much to talk about, I'm thinking about the next thing that I want to respond with
right.
instead of actively listening. Right. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to ask those open ended questions, get them to talk. As what I've been told is that as a leader, you're supposed to speak last. You're supposed to speak last. So you let during your one on ones, you let your direct reports do all the talking. They ask you questions. You can chime in when you want to if you have a thought, but you let them do the talking, right? And
Okay.
then you speak last. So that's what I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to incorporate into my leadership style.
I
So
think that's important too because a lot of people when they're going into those situations as the like subordinate, right? They're not thinking a lot of times of how they can take advantage of the meeting. They're thinking more so like a lot of people complain a lot in one-on-ones, right? Or sometimes they don't say anything like you just said, but that's your time. I'll say this. I think people need to recognize whatever time you're given that you don't actually have to exercise work, you should take advantage of fleshing out information, building trust, which we'll get to here shortly, but you really have to take like advantage of those one-on-ones. That's what I used to do. Like boys know, like don't let Mike have the floor because I'm gonna speak it and be like, hey, I want to know how I can do this, this,
yeah.
this, and this.
The goal of the one-on-ones to pull out potential and find strengths and weaknesses, or why are the one-on-ones being performed?
So from yeah, that's a good question. I think from my experience, a lot of the times people are just trying to gauge okay. I think there's and he's smiling right now. There are multiple management styles.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times people disregard the importance of one-on-ones.
Yes.
And so, like, with that said, people, like, managers are just trying to get through it.
Mhm.
A lot of managers are like, okay, this they thinking in their mind, I got a more important meeting
Yes.
that I gotta get to after this. Let's hurry up and get through this.
Yeah.
And they don't take it serious, which is the downfall of the actual subordinate employee, right? Because they're the ones that's actually going to benefit and grow from it. But what the manager doesn't understand is if you can actually bring out the potential and the actual, like, what I want to say, the motivation out of that person, you're going to get a better performance out of that person,
Yeah.
right? Which is going to help you. Like, as the manager, you're responsible for everything, good and bad.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you did it or somebody else did it.
Yeah.
And they just don't take advantage of that. So what they should be pulling out of that is what is going to be an issue and what is going to be an actual anchor, something that's going to be a strength to help us propel not just this person, but the team, right? Like, you have to think of the bigger picture as he was talking about, like, what's the end result? It's not like that. Yeah, there is some, like, probably like corporate reason for why the one-on-ones have to exist. But there's also a deeper meaning and context to why you should actually take it serious.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. Was a really good question. So everybody has different management styles, but I look at it like everyone's one-on-ones is what they make it. But basically the purpose of a one-on-one really is to be a touch base between the manager and the employee to kind of see where they're currently at in their career, their day-to-day, what they've got going on. Because the manager, we don't know what you're doing day to day every minute of every hour. We don't know that. So that's your opportunity to kind of share your accomplishments with your management so we can be on the same page. If you have any career aspirations, like you want to be promoted or, you're looking at this other opening in a different area, you need some support or things like that. That's what that's for. Or it could just be a venting session. Like if you're dealing with a project, like, hey, I'm having this blocker. I can't get past this because of this. You let the manager know, and then they can do what they need to do to kind of remove that blocker. But it's really the individual's time to kind of make it what they want, make it their own, but really just to share with their manager. Because there's this thing called performance evaluations at the end of the year. So if you're a good manager, you're listening, you're practicing active listening, and that's what I'm trying to do now, is just really listen to what people are bringing to the table, their accomplishments, blockers, career aspirations, and I can kind of accumulate all that at the end of the year. So I'm like, okay, I know so-and-so, he told me he did this, and he has aspirations to become a lead or something like that. Boom, all in the performance evaluation and things like that. So it's ultimately it's really all in what they make, what you make it. But you have to really be motivated to. You can't be like, oh, here comes another one-on-one, my man.
So for you, it should be more data accumulation for your knowledge on how to help the individual in a
Yes.
year, as well as an opportunity to help the team grow and see where everybody's at, so you can move.
Yeah, my
the goal
goal as a
forward to you.
manager is to help coach and develop my people.
Okay.
Which is great because that leads into the segue here for, like, how do you build that trust with the direct report? Like, what coaching or mentoring do you try to, like, implement to help grow that? I mean, managers don't realize this sometimes, but they are responsible for growing the individual. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point. Now that I think of it, it's like I do as a manager, you kind of hold your employees' career in your hands.
yeah,
And it's a huge responsibility as a manager, and you don't really think about that. But it just goes back from a coaching perspective. You just have to you have to let your employees speak. You have to just sit back and let them talk. Let them drive the conversations. Let them tell you what they want to do. Let them tell you what the problems that they're experiencing, and how they want you. As a manager, first important thing we got to do is we got to set expectations.
right,
Employees aren't going to know that's what you're expecting in the one-on-ones unless you tell them. And so when I set one-on-ones up, I'm kind of like, hey, this time is for you.
right.
This is your time to tell me what if you want to give feedback to me, that's fine. I got feedback for you, but it's really for you to give me feedback. Tell me what you're wanting to accomplish in your career. What, you know what I mean? Like, any blockers you have, anything. It's your time. But in the past, I've seen I kind of take control of that sometimes. I'm trying to step back. And I think a lot of managers do that because I mean, there may be one-on-ones where people don't have anything, and that's fine. You don't
Yeah.
have to if
Oh
you have
yeah.
a 30-minute scheduled one-on-one, and if you're like, "Hey, you got anything for me?" And if the person's like, "No, I don't have anything," you can end it. It's
Yeah.
their time.
Yep.
But what I found is when an employee says, "I don't have anything, we've got 20 minutes left," I carry on the conversation. And so I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but what I'm trying to do, be like, hey, this is your time. If you don't, I'm trying to pull things out of them. But if they don't have anything, I don't want to keep them for. It's their time. If they don't have anything, we can leave it at this. Like, hey, just ping me on the side whenever you have something come up. My door's always open.
Does
think
that
that's
ding their
yeah.
performance at the end of the year? It doesn't?
No, I
Okay.
didn't see that.
I think what's important about that too is like if you're a subordinate employee, right, and you have a manager that you have these one-on-ones with, even if you are a manager that has you're reporting to somebody else, I think that's something you need to understand. Like, how do I plan for that one-on-one? You actually should plan for your
Yes.
one-on-ones because one, managers don't always stick around.
That's if you daggone right.
And then you have to build a rapport again with the next manager.
Yes.
So you probably should be thinking about each one-on-one that you get, taking full advantage of it, because some people do it every week, every other week, once a month.
Mhm.
Like, clearly, if you're not getting the high frequency of it, you really should be planning for your one-on-ones, what you want to discuss, understand, and we talked about this in previous episode, understanding what the direction of the company is, how they're doing,
Yeah.
how it impacts you, right? Because that actually will drive some of those one-on-ones. Sometimes you're just asking like, okay, how is the company with this plan going to affect us? Because sometimes that's not discussed all the time in a team meeting,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you need to drive out more details, and sometimes you get lucky, you get a manager where they'll actually tell you more than they probably should.
Yes, and that's another topic we can kind of get into. Like, transparency, I think, is key, and that's one thing I try to focus on as being a manager. I try to be as transparent as possible, meaning that if there's anything I hear rumblings about in the company or whatnot, I try to share that with my team. I try to share as much about certain processes that we follow in leadership with my team as possible. I probably shouldn't be as transparent, but as a leader, you do have to. There is a fine line. You can't share everything. Um, and if you and I say that because once you start sharing too much with your employees, they start thinking they have a stake at the table, and that can cause conflict, right? Because they think they should be involved in certain situations when they no, you can't be involved with this. This is a leadership thing. And that's one thing I have to learn as a manager. Like, I can't be as transparent as I want to be in certain situations, right? Anything that affects the team, anything that I can share, I will, but I have to still try to figure that out because a lot of times they won't tell you what you can share and what you can't. Not that you have to ask. You have to ask, be like, "Hey, am I allowed to share this with my team?" And then they'll let you know. But a lot of times they don't tell you that off the rip. So you're just sharing stuff like, "Oh crap, I probably shouldn't have said that." You know what I mean? I've had a lot of instances like that because I'm very transparent and I probably share way too much. But that kind of gets into the trust building.
Mm-hmm.
People really respect a transparent manager because it's almost like you don't have nothing to hide and you're making sure they're included. That's how you build rapport. It's all about being inclusive, right?
Right.
Making sure people are included with everything. So to me, that's a big thing of building trust, right? Being as transparent as possible. And really, as a new manager taking over, let's just say if you take over a new team, you do not want to disrupt the current processes that are working. Don't try to implement things too quickly. If something's not broken, don't try to fix it. Let things play out. Let the processes play out how they've been playing out. And then if there's an opportunity area, then you can kind of recommend something. But don't come in and try to be gun ho and I want to do this. I want to do this. Because you're at the end of the day, you have a career you want to focus on too. But at the same time, you're managing people that you have their careers in your hand. You don't want to mess up the morale because you're trying to move forward on this director position. Oh, if I do this, oh man, that'll give me a director. But you're undermining what your people already are used to and have in place and what's working for them.
So let's dive into, because we've touched on like the manager perspective. Let's touch on the actual employee perspective, right? So what should somebody do if their manager or leader is kind of like mismanaging, or they're not living up to the performance that a manager should be doing? Like, what are some things that, as an employee or subordinate, they could do to try to either better the situation or help themselves out in the situation?
So is the question more towards like they're seeing that their manager isn't managing them the right way that they think they should be managing them? Or
Right. Like, say for instance, they're given tasks that, probably are unrelated or not efficient enough, or like maybe. So I'll just say this: what should somebody do if they have a manager that's not a good manager?
Mm.
Yeah, that's not a good man. I hate to say not a good manager, but
No.
sometimes like managers just don't. Like we talked about this earlier before we started, right? Some managers are put into position, but they have no training on
Yeah.
being a manager, right? It's just because you were the next man up, like you said, you're a high performer, so you got the chance, right?
Yeah.
So, but people don't realize you actually have to learn management skills, right? Like, if I'm not mistaken, there's technically a degree on
For management,
management, right? So,
Mhm.
like, clearly there's a skill and like a path and journey to getting to that kind of level.
Well,
But
I think it's important to understand there's a difference between being a manager and a leader.
mhm,
That's the first thing you kind of have to kind of
that's
differentiate. To me, a manager is just somebody who kind of make sure that they implement processes, make sure that team processes are being followed, right? From leaders and from the top down approach, whatever the company is trying to put forth, they make sure that their team is doing the right thing for the company, things like that. A leader to me is somebody that ones you build trust with your team and that you're making sure that you're doing whatever you can to make sure that your team is propelling or excelling in their career, coaching development, providing support, right? Hook, link you up with people to kind of help you with their career, right? To me, that's a leader. Um, Somebody who is make sure that the team is included with everything. Going back to transparency, a manager is somebody that's like, hey, we got this task that was brought down from CEO so and so.
yeah.
We got to do this. I want you guys to do this, and I'm going to delegate this task to you, and I need this done by next week. That's a manager.
So the leadership creates the flow of things. Management just directs the
Pretty-
flow of
yeah.
things. Pretty much.
And I think it's like it also depends on the situation, like what kind of business that you are.
Yeah.
Because some think, okay, so like McDonald's, right? You need a manager, right? The process is the same all the time. Like, I need you to do this, and if the process does change,
Yeah.
there's no open discussion on like how you think it should go. This is how they said it's going to go. This is what we're going to do to execute, right? So I'm glad you actually brought up the distinction on that, because I wasn't actually thinking of a difference between the two.
Yeah.
I was more so just thinking like, because of like the space that we're in, that's just how it's always been.
Yeah.
The question came to my mind about when you asked the question was, I think some people have a bad interpretation of what makes a good manager because it's not always up to you. I feel like
That's a good
like you
point.
said, when it comes to leadership, if it's someone else's business, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I don't have a say-so in what they want to do.
Exactly.
Ultimately, what they want to do.
Yeah.
So if the manager come in and implementing stuff that the business owner wants to be done,
Mhm.
taking it out on him is not going to change anything.
Right.
Because he might not be managing bad. He's just managing what he's given.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's the first thing that came to my mind is sometimes as an employee, it's not really, if you want to change the rules, start your own business.
Yeah. Well,
It's not really up to
there's
you,
also
you know?
there's also a notion of leading up.
Okay, yeah,
so
go into that.
meaning that, yeah, as a manager, I can lead my individual team, but as my direct reports, they can lead me as well. So basically, as a manager, like in a one-on-ones, for instance, do you have any feedback for me? That's their opportunity to be like, well, Chris, I think that what you told us that we need to have done by next week, that's kind of aggressive, and this is why. Or I think you should have taken this approach.
Yeah.
And you have to be, but here's the thing, you have to be open as a leader, as a manager, to receive that feedback. Some people aren't.
Oh, is that coming from subordinates or leadership?
Subordinates coming to you, telling you what, hey, I think you would benefit if you would implement this, or hey, prime example. So my team, I brought up the notion of introducing sprints. I don't want to get into the whole background of what
God.
sprints mean
Yeah.
and things like that. But anyway, it's an IT term, right? To try to how to deliver work faster. And that's been a big topic for me and my team. So, I brought it up to the team. But the way I do it is that I bring it up in a way that everybody has a voice, and I try to empower my team to give their opinion and their feedback so I can share that with senior leadership. It's like, hey, we're thinking about implementing sprints with the team, blah, blah, blah. What do you guys feel about this? And you're going to have some silence, but you always have one person who is not
Always.
scared
Yep.
of challenging you, or there's always one. And that's fine. I want that. And they give you the feedback. And even on the side of like, hey, Chris, the team did not like the fact that you brought this up. But I'm open to that feedback. And it's up to a manager to gather that feedback from the employees and share that with senior leadership. Senior leadership doesn't know what they don't know unless you tell them. But you have to back it up with data. Right. So I have to take that information and be like, hey, the team isn't for this because of this. Or I could be like, they've tried this before and it hadn't worked because of this. Or they don't think this is a good idea because of the type of work we got going, this. But you have to back all that up with data. All that to be said, going back to lead up, as a manager, I expect my direct reports to tell me if I'm doing what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well. But you have to have people you have to empower your employees to be able to do so. If you're a manager that kind of comes in and is like, my word is the be all go all, your team is not going to speak up. But if you go in and you promote, hey, I want everybody to have a voice. I'm going to empower you all to help me make decisions. Me as a manager, I involve everybody on everything. I don't like making a decision without involving my team. So like, hey, what do you guys think about this? What about implementing this? How do you guys feel about that? And that's how I built that trust. And then that gives them an opportunity to kind of tell me if it's BS or if they don't think we should take a different approach or what. But it takes time. But yeah, you got to lead up.
So, Chris, where are you at and who you report to right now?
Yes, where it's like you said earlier, like each company is different. Each depending on the size of the company, the structure is built different. So I worked at a company before to where when I was a manager at my company, I reported directly to a director. In this company I'm at today, I report to a GM, general manager.
Oh, okay.
And then the general manager reports to a director. Director then reports to the business leader. Business leader reports to the CIO. Right. So I think one thing to understand is that as a frontline manager, we're closer to the boots on the ground,
Right.
the actual hands-on work. So we understand the technology, we understand the day-to-day. When I'm reporting things up to my GM, his responsibility as the GM is to coach and develop managers.
Okay.
You got to understand when you say that is that he's not close to the work like we are.
Right.
So you got to keep a lot of things very high level, very surface level.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's reporting things up to the director,
Mm-hmm.
the director doesn't care what it takes you to get from A to B. He just wants to know like, okay, how much money is it? And do you need more people? You know what I'm saying? So you got to keep things very high level. To my manager, he kind of wants to know the ins and outs a little bit, but at the same time, he has to report what I say to him, to his leadership. So we have to keep things high level and kind of explain things in a way to where, I don't know how to say this without sounding bad, but you have to kind of explain things in a way to like it's somebody's first time trying to understand something.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful on terminology that you use, and you got to really try to break things down to where it correlates to how's this going to benefit the company.
Right.
How much money are we saving?
Mm.
How much money is it going to cost? Is it going to be more? Do we need more people? Do we need to get more people, more resources? Do you need resources to implement this? Right. So you just have to understand that dynamic, and you got to understand that when you're presenting to higher level management, they love presentations in a way where there's not a lot of words. One thing I have to learn as a manager that when I'm sharing information about my team to my manager, I have to think in mind, okay, he's going to share this with his manager who's a director. He doesn't care about me writing up a novel. What bullet points? He wants bullet points. He wants me to hit it home. Get straight to the point. You know what I'm saying? So when he presents it to his manager, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I can go to our business leader or our VP or whoever, present it, get approval, boom.
Well, that's interesting because I never really thought about that. You're like the last line of defense of like how the sausage gets made, and then you have a challenging responsibility of how to communicate that upward. That's
He's almost
really
communicating. He has to switch his communication style up depending
yeah,
on working with, like you said, the people that
Yep.
implement versus the people, the leadership,
right.
and the style is totally different.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
to like hear because I don't think I've ever come across that before.
Yeah. I mean, you got to understand because it's like when in my position, when my manager is asking me how something is going or what's the blockers or what's going on, I have to remind myself he doesn't understand the end. I don't want to say understand. He's not in the day to day on a regular like I am. For one, it's the employer's job to break down the goal of the company's goal in a way that makes sense to each individual team and how they play a role into it. And it's the manager's responsibility to understand what that goal is and how we're going to interpret it to our team, right? A lot of times, senior leaders at companies can kind of get caught up in a situation where they know what they want to do as a company. They put it down on paper. This is our goal, but they're not thinking how it's going to be perceived by teams
Hmm.
within the
Exactly.
company. Because you can go to said so and so team, they're like, "What the heck does this mean? What is this?" Right? And so I think it's really important for managers.
Like in the camera, dog.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to hold it together. I'm trying to give it, but the dog is up here scratching himself.
Yo,
with
it's
his,
crazy.
it's
I'm like,
so
bro,
funny.
everybody gonna be watching you scratch
I
your
can
Yeah.
put him outside again if it helps.
I
Real quick.
mean,
Take a pause
Nah,
and
he
edit it
good.
out.
He
He
good.
is what he is right now.
That's so funny. But I think it's really important for a manager to really understand what the company's goals are. And also, one, it's several things you have to think about in your mind. How is my team going to take this? Does this make
Right.
sense to my team? They're going to have feedback.
Yeah.
Do they understand what this means? Do they understand how they can contribute or how they play a role into this? And then it's my job as a manager. If I get feedback from the team, like, yo, this don't make no sense to me, I have to share that with my senior leaders. Like, hey, we got to do something, kind of tweak this. So, depending on the size of the company,
Yeah.
the overarching company will have a organizational goal, but each team or each
Department and stuff like
department
that.
will kind
Yeah.
of take that
Yeah.
and make their own goal that kind of correlates to so it's like it's a lot, but it all sums up to the manager. As a manager, you have to really understand how are you going to articulate your area or company's goals to your team to where they can understand it and really understand, one, how do I play a role into this, and really get hyped up and be like, oh man, this is awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to contribute to this. That's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough, man. Really, the only thing I can say from a manager perspective, like I said, you got to understand what the company goals are, and you got to understand your team well enough to be like, okay, how was so and so going to take this information? What is this individual going to expect me to come with? Like, they're going to want to know, okay, what's the end goal, and how do we play into this? That's really what it all boils down to.
All right, so let's get into the tricky part of what we've been building up to, which is the customer expectation and how the pincer attack comes. Because when the customer expectation comes into it, you have that, you have your direct reports are like have their opinion of what the expectation should be, and then you have leadership who's like, this is our expectation. A lot of times it doesn't align. So with that said, let's talk about like how do you make sure the customer needs are met and who's responsible for communicating that clearly,
Mm.
right? See, this is a question that has to be asked, right? Because a lot of people aren't thinking about it. They're not thinking about what the customer need is, how it should be executed, right? A lot of times companies will be like, I'll say this, like when you get into a certain world like cybersecurity where everything's built off of a contract, right? The contract for this customer says we're going to provide X, Y, and Z services, right? But that might be different for a customer who gets A, B, and C services, right? So everything's tailored different. We offer services, it's just, across the spectrum, but you get to pick which ones you want. now it's like, okay, well, what is the customer needing in these expectations? Because what'll happen is when you're selling a service, if a customer is paying a lot of money, all of a sudden when they start asking for little favors and things that go outside the scope of the service, the customer goes, I mean, the company goes, let's go ahead and try to do that for them.
Mm-hmm.
So in my experience, we've actually had to create services out of nowhere because we sold them something that didn't exist.
Sounds messy.
Another day. But at the base, how do we make sure the customer needs are getting met? Right. And that's why I say it's a pincer attack. Like, it's because you got the customers like, well, our interpretation of the service is this. Team goes, nah, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Company goes, we don't?
Yeah.
We should. Let's make the customer happy.
Yeah. Even though we're obviously in a different space, I always look at it from like what you brought up earlier. Ask more questions. If your entire purpose, obviously everybody's entire purpose for making a business is to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're offering a service to someone, shouldn't you be the most concerned about how it makes that person feel when the service is completed or what it actually does for them?
Mm-hmm.
So there shouldn't be anything wrong with just asking them questions post purchase. Hey, how did that turn out? Or how did, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
just get in there involved. Like, do you guys have like account managers and stuff that y'all deal with or stuff like that? So that's their job to continuously ask questions and see how they can improve product, improve service, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most important roles because that, again, sometimes you don't even know if you have a good product until the customer tells you.
Right.
You might think you have, this is the best thing ever, and then you put it out into the marketplace and it sucks. That's the importance of asking but you'd be surprised some people do not seem to care what the customer thinks about the service. It's like, that's how you make the money for the business. So if they're not satisfied, you're kind of doing everything backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's my perspective on it.
No, that's good.
How do you know? Ask more questions.
No, that's really good
Make
because
surveys
you
or
brought up
whatever.
account managers, right? Like, we deal with account managers. Like, we call them customer success managers where I work. And I think a lot of times, like, departments don't communicate to we call them CSMs for short. They don't communicate to the CSMs the reality of, like, meeting the expectation. So communicating, asking questions is very important. That's why I said, how do you communicate it clearly, right? Because, and I think that's just what it comes down to is, like, overall communication around the whole company. So, like, how do you're in a very particular situation after hearing what you said because you have to message it completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you try to meet those
Demands of the
expectations?
customers. Communication is key, but from a manager perspective, you have to understand that you have to have trust in your team. And what I mean by that is you have to understand that your team is closest to the work. Your
Right.
team understands what we have currently set up, where we're currently at, how long it would take us to get to so and so request or whatnot. You have to have that trust. And with that, as a manager, I have to take that and I have to take it to senior leadership. Like, hey, I know that so and so wants to implement this, but we can't do that because we're here. In order to get there, we got to get there. Right. So to me, it's all about one communication and really just having trust in your team that they can either deliver or they can't deliver. If they can't deliver, you have to understand, like, okay, why can't we deliver? What do we need in order to deliver that? Is it money? Is it more people? And how long would it take that? What's the roadmap look like? Then you have to share that with senior leadership. Now, when you share that, depending on the options and the roadmap, the timeline, you can get pushback. You can get them like, no, we don't like that. We want you to deliver faster.
Yeah.
Or you're like, okay, what do you guys need in order to deliver that faster? Or do you, like if you guys are saying you can't get this in place until 2 years from now, we want to speed that up. So what do you need? Right. But it's really all about communication. We can't really tell customers are always right, right? So when a customer comes to us like, hey, we want you guys to do this. One, we have to be able to have enough confidence. You have to empower your people enough to be like, hey, if this doesn't make sense with our environment, what we have in place today,
Mm-hmm.
you can push back and be
Yeah.
like, hey, as we stand right now, we're not able to deliver on this.
Mm-hmm.
But if we say that, you have to have an alternative solution.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's what I was going to get to. Like, the answer could be no,
Yeah.
but you have to have a but behind it. because you have to deliver on something. The customer is expecting. This is something I learned last week. The customer is paying for something.
Yes.
They expect something to be delivered.
Yep.
Another thing too is like you said, the customer's always right. I think something needs to be said about customers because not all business is good business, right? Like we've heard that saying, we've actually witnessed it too. And like I won't say which company that I worked for in the past, they would fire a customer
Mm.
because at some point the customer can't be right, and sometimes the customer is being too unreasonable.
Yeah.
And if it's costing what we call bandwidth or resources to keep that customer happy, like they would cut them loose.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat, because the squeeze, like what you're getting out of it ain't
Yeah,
worth
lemon
it
ain't
at
worth
the
that
end.
squeeze.
Yeah. So like I think that's something like people watching, like keep that in mind. Like not all customers are customers you want.
Yeah, it almost comes down to data. It seems like too. If it's a frequently requested thing that a lot of people are asking, then it would probably make sense to implement that thing.
Right.
But if it's not, and like you said, it's just an individual being overly
Mhm.
complicated and wanting this, and it's like, yeah, we just don't do that.
I think sometimes customers just they just abuse an availability with the service,
Yeah.
right? Like they everybody wants a loophole.
Yeah.
And some things with account managers that drives me insane is they're responsible for making sure the customer's happy with the service. Sometimes they bend the knee.
Yes.
Keep the customer happy is like,
So I
don't.
remember that when I
That
went
may-
to Angie's List, man. So like,
Yeah.
when I was working in inside sales, a customer would pay for a specific package a year. Like say they spent $12,000 a year,
Mhm.
and it only got them X amount of leads, and the customer success manager would literally extend it and get them more. That's not what they paid for though. Like you're literally giving them free
Yeah.
something that they didn't pay for. You know what I'm saying? Just for the sake of making them happy or something like that. It's like, what's the
Yeah.
point of selling the stupid package?
Yeah. I
Yep.
used to work for a company in the past where we had account managers or CSMs.
Mm-hmm.
They're just yes people. They just say yes to whatever. Yes, we can do that. We can do that before they even have a conversation or consult the team that's going to be responsible
Mhm.
for delivering that. That's horrible practice. You have to. It's okay for anybody to be like, hey, I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that. Let me talk with the team that's responsible for delivering this, and then I'll
Yeah.
get back to you.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people are account management. They're so caught up in keeping the customer's business that they're just like, yes, we can do that.
Desperate, Mac, yeah.
And then they go to the team like, hey, I need you guys to do this. We can't,
It don't work
but I
like
need
that,
you
yeah.
to. We can't.
Now, here's the thing. And when I come across good CSMs or customer success managers, like one thing I notice is like when I'm in the meeting with them and the customer's there, they're like, okay, I'm gonna take that as an action item. Let me go
Yes.
verify
Mhm.
with the team responsible to see how we can implement it if we can or not.
Yeah.
Like bad CSM practices saying we can do something you have no idea, because
Right.
a lot of CSMs, they don't know the product that
They don't.
well.
Mm-mm.
They don't know how the product actually even works, right? So when they say yes to something, they come back to us like, well, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You should have took that as a note, came
Mhm.
to us, and then responded back, right? Because me as an investigator, that's what I have to do. They be like, hey, Mike, what's the causes? Like,
Yeah.
Rod just got here.
Yeah.
Let me go dig first, and I'll come back with some, responses. It might not be exactly what you want to hear,
Yep.
but I'm gonna come back with something.
I think what CSMs or account managers, whatever, what they need to start doing, if they know they're going to have a technical conversation with a customer or whoever, they need to make sure they have a
Rep.
SME resource from said team that's
Mhm.
responsible for delivering said product on that call. And then they can refer to, if the customer's like, hey, can you guys do this? The account manager's like, hey, so-and-so, this is your area.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? That's what they need to start doing. But what happens is there's a lot of these ad hoc conversations going on to where customers are talking to account management, CSMs, or whoever, and they're like, hey, it'd be nice if you guys, we got this use case, we got this problem that we want to move forward on, but we heard you guys could do something like that. And you got people making decisions like, oh yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do it. But they only have like maybe 30 to 40% of the knowledge of the product, but they don't have that additional 70% that they need to be like, can we actually deliver on this?
Yeah.
And so they're making these promises to people, and then they're going to the teams and saying like, hey, I just talked to said customer, they want to do this. I need you guys to do that. But we can't.
That's interesting because they have that on the front end where like especially depending on the size of the company, you'll have a SDR, sales engineer, and an account executive, and they're all on the call to
Sometimes.
make depending on, like I said, the company, to help make the proper decisions. Do the account managers ever have anybody working with them when they're talking to customers?
It just depends. The problem is because of the frequency of the meeting with the customer and the availability, because a lot of times those account managers are not just talking to some any day Joe. They're probably talking to a director or a CISO or somebody high up.
Yeah.
So their availability is very limited. So when they get that call going, not if they ain't got time to be double checking with the internal team to see who's available. So a lot of times they'll just take it, and like he said, anything that is a question, they should just write it down and then go present it to the team, and then go, hey, here's what they
There
said.
should be no solid answer,
Right? Because like, okay, and here's one thing, and before we start to wrap things up, the one thing that in my experience with previous companies that was the issue is be careful with startup companies.
Mhm.
Because their whole drive is to get sales, and some of them are willing to do whatever. And one thing that I was told by a CSM was like, hey, what was told to all of us was, if the customer is asking if we can do it, tell them yes we can.
Oh, dang.
That's wild.
Yeah, bid them back, right? Because and it wasn't just one CSM, it was multiple that told me that. So like the practice is already down the toilet, right? You can't. It's so hard, and Chris knows this. It's so hard to develop a new product, a new service on the spot, right? Because they're thinking, especially if they're signing on for the first time, the customer's like thinking, "All right, we onboard in like 3 months. They'll have it ready." Yeah. It's not that fast.
It's not that fast. It's not that easy because there's so much research and development that has to come into that, because you have to look to see if your environment can even scale out to what they're trying to put forth.
Mm-hmm.
You got to see you have the right resources to have the knowledge in order to implement said service or whatnot. And then you have to develop a plan on how to implement it. Then and not even think about that. You have other team processes that you have to rely on before you even implement something. You have you got to put in a change request to implement something in production. Maybe you're not the team that is responsible for creating new servers. I'm going tech here, but let's just say, hey, in order to kind of scale this out, we gotta build like 4 new servers. That's a totally different team. They have their own process they have to adhere to. Like it takes like 2 weeks for us to kind of spin up 2 servers. You're gonna have to wait. Okay, so what's it look like to expedite that? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot that goes into providing, like if a customer comes to us to kind of implement something new that a team's not used to. There's a lot that goes into that I think that account managers or whoever is talking to the customer who's face to face will benefit from. Actually, that's why communication is key. You got to talk to these teams and be like, hey, I'm about to have a conversation with said customer. They're thinking about this idea. I want someone. Can you be on this call with me to ensure that we're on the same page and we can deliver? Now, you can't put everybody. Here's the more like you said earlier, account managers, they're dealing with execs or more senior level management. You can't bring a engineer on the call because they're gonna tell it how it is. They're gonna be like, nope, we can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait,
or
what?
they'll get too technical. And
those
those guys are not built for that.
So you got to be real mindful who you bring on the call, which is why, in turn, and I'm giving account managers the benefit of the doubt. You got to be very strategic in who you include in those type of conversations. You can't have somebody very techie on a call with a CEO, CIO, CTO, or whatever, because they don't care about all that, right? They just want to know if you can do it or not.
And usually they put the lead or the manager of that team on the call.
Yeah,
just for access.
Yep, and then you got to be very, man, we can go on for another hour.
You know what? We probably should have like a part 2 to this, because
we probably should.
There's so much that comes to it. And I knew I had a feeling we probably wouldn't get to all of it, but let's round everything up and let's get to my last question, which is going to be on you, Alexis. You've heard the whole conversation. You've heard all of what we kind of address as concerns, some things that have worked well in the past or currently with management, things like that. Do you have some confidence going into tomorrow? I mean, I mean, you're one of those people that's always confident anyway.
Confident,
I think what's going to be interesting.
I just got here.
Joe Cool over here, like, I guess when looking to tomorrow, Like, how many people are you working with?
As far as like managing or
Yeah.
like the whole team,
Yeah, just managing.
I think it's like four
4.
or five
Okay.
people.
Anything that you want to kind of identify out the gate tomorrow with the team?
Mostly just learning names. I'm gonna start there. Identifying what my roles, responsibilities are, kind
Yeah.
of getting a feel for personalities and
Yeah.
things of that nature. Just keeping it straightforward.
That sounds good. I mean, what are they going to be kind of like in the same space that you used to work in? For
Oh yeah, I guess
photography and stuff like
yeah.
that. So, okay.
Yeah, so I know how to do their jobs already. It's just
And tomorrow you're hitting the ground running, right? Like,
oh yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
already a gig, like
Production. So I get to kind of sit back and kind of watch how they work,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I was
take
just gonna,
notes.
I was just gonna say that I
Yeah.
think it's very important for you as a new leader coming in, just kind of sit back and watch how they work. That's
You know what's
most
funny?
important.
It's Alexis, and he's a great listener.
Mhm.
So I was like, he gonna be
Yeah.
all
The
the
fact-
tips you said. I
Yeah,
was
the
like,
fact that you said that, I'm like, bro, he owned it already.
I'm just sucking it all
Yeah,
in.
you just watch what they doing, soak it all in, and then also whenever you have that opportunity to kind of sit down with them at a one-on-one or what, just kind of just ask them what they expect from you.
is that one of your responsibilities? Is one-on-ones?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I really don't. We'll find out tomorrow. I'm asked a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
And like I said, just take it day by day. You know,
Okay.
I'm trying not to take everything on all at once. That's why I'm not like nervous
Yeah.
or anything. I can only learn so much in a day.
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
only give me so much in a day, and I can only be me. So,
Yeah. I was just curious because usually a lot of times when like those roles get posted online or something like that, they'll have the responsibilities in there, like what you got to do, and a lot of times there's a lot of things you don't want to do. So
Yeah.
He was saying there's like a lot of meetings and stuff, and I'm kind of like, well, what are we gonna talk about? I don't even know what I'm doing yet. So I really just don't know. Right now, it's just
Yeah.
the title. You know,
Yeah.
everything sounds good on the
Yeah.
post, and then you get in there, you're just like, oh, okay.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
little bit more than what y'all wrote.
But
You
I
know,
think you're in a good position right now to where like you just listening mode right now. Just sit back, listen, and you got a good 3-month buffer.
oh yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
think
sure,
you're in
yeah.
a good position learning from these.
Yeah.
30,
60, 90. That's what it is. 36, 90.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So every time y'all talk, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What's that?
Pretty much, yeah. All right, so let's keep a tradition around here. So let's start off with Christian. What is tomorrow gonna be like for you? What's something you're gonna try to like? It don't have to be something new that you implement, but what's been going well as far as like you attacking, the beginning of the week and stuff like that?
Well, I've gotten my schedule outside of work down to what works for me because at first I was doing a lot. And during the week, I really do a lot of my actual content creation. And then on the weekends, I do my posting.
Okay.
Like building the news, like writing the newsletters, putting up the social media posts, different stuff like that. So tomorrow is really just going to be me actually writing in my next book, probably recording a video of me doing something within the business.
Yeah.
Things of that nature is usually what I try to stick to because I used to be all over the place, dude. At first, I'm like, like I said, I go off of a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this dude, and I jump around. But now I'm starting to realize, okay, keep them kind of separate because there's actual creation of stuff, and then there's actually scheduling the post
Yeah.
and putting out the content. So I keep them separate. So weekdays are for creating.
There we go.
Write it
Chris,
down.
what's tomorrow looking like?
Well, I already kind of shared that I'm kind of taking a new approach
Mhm.
on how I'm going to lead. This week coming up is when I have all my one-on-ones and stuff like that scheduled with my team. So I'm really going to take a step back this week and kind of just let them guide those conversations and kind of see how I can actually support without actually taking over.
Yeah.
I really want to just sit back and really just ask those open-ended questions. I'm all about right now. I've got a few individuals on my team that they're looking to go to the next level,
Mhm.
and I'm really wanting to kind of pick that apart and see what that looks like. What do you guys want me to do to help you propel? I don't want to lead it. I don't want to take over. I don't want to take lead on that.
Yeah.
This is your career, so I want to sit back, ask those open-ended questions, let them talk, and then kind of figure it out from there. So that's pretty much what I'm doing this week.
Okay, dope. Alexis, you kind of already touched on it a little bit, but if you want to reiterate, you can about what tomorrow's gonna look like.
Yeah, just like I said, learning people's names, learning more about my function and people's temperament and how they approach work and productions and whatnot, so I can figure out how to be a manager.
There we go.
Because I manage my way, and I know going into this, there's a certain, you know, how do you say, way to do it
Yeah.
that, aligns with the company's goals and stuff.
One tip I will give to you is what's been shared with me. You have to meet people where they're at,
Mm.
right? So people are not going to do things the way you would do them. And you have to kind of understand that and meet them where they're at.
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I know, but you just kind of meet people where they're not gonna, everybody's learning curves are different. The way people manage things or do things is different. You just kind of understand that. That's one thing I had to learn. Going back to the conversation about, I tend to take lead because I was a high performer,
Right.
but I got to step back, right? And you kind of meet people where they're at, where they're currently at, where their current skills, how they look at things and things like that. So
One thing I was going to say to that, because occasionally I lead a team too, I always ask people that are new, is it okay if I coach you for a minute? I ask first, ask permission,
like
because
that.
sometimes when you just come at them,
yeah, that's a good
it can
point.
get on people's nerves.
Yeah, nobody
sometimes,
likes
so,
that.
Yeah.
No, do this.
That is a very
Don't
good
do
point.
that.
Ask them, be like, hey, do you mind? I got some feedback for you. Do you mind if I
Right.
share that with you?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you may be like, they might be like, not right now, or they may be open to it. Like, yeah, sure, I'm open to it.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of get into it.
Yeah.
I don't like being told what to do. So,
A lot of us don't.
Yeah.
A lot of us.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't. A lot of us don't.
Yeah, I guess tomorrow for me is just going to be pretty simple. I've been thinking a lot about like my personality and the kind of the traits I have, and I'm very quick to speak and very slow to listen. So I want to reverse that. It's actually one of the things in the Bible too. So tomorrow, and I kind of already been starting to do it, is just be more of a listener, more focused. I think a lot of times because my brain is just all over the place. You don't want to live there. I do too much within a certain amount of time. So tomorrow, goal is going to take this episode, edit it, chop it up, make some more videos out of it, and make that a focus for getting uploaded in the near future. So that's what I'm looking at, and I love Mondays now. I'm kind of weird because like, bruh,
really?
you can hate Monday, you might as well hate Tuesday, and the week ain't over. That's how I look at it. Like,
Bro,
It's
all
just
my,
it's just it ain't over. Like, you might as well just be like, hey, here we go.
Yeah. Jump into it.
Try to have a positive attitude, be at peace, because when Friday gets there for me, it's another day to me. Like, I work overtime sometimes where I'm on call. I literally worked yesterday.
Yeah.
I had to turn the car around with the family
It's
in
a little
it.
different with you. Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, hey, it's Monday. I get to talk to my team. How y'all doing? Like, I like working with my team.
I was gonna say I feel like, and I'm the youngest one here, but the older I get, the more I'm into being productive, and I do look forward to the work that I do now. Where it used to be like, I just want to go home and game or go chill with my buddies or do all. Not that I don't enjoy that stuff. Yeah, but it's like I like to create. I like to learn. I like to be productive.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. I feel like in my, like, going into my mid-30s and stuff, it's just been changing like that. And I'm like, when you have downtime, it's like, all right, I'm about to jump back into some kind of work or studying or
it's
something. You know what I'm saying?
weird.
It's like
I just think like, one, I'm blessed and grateful to even have a job that
yeah, absolutely
allows me to take
Respect the
care of my
change.
family. So when Monday comes around, I'm like, I'm still here. Let's go. I'm weird. I get it because when my team's like, Mike,
Oh, that's a great perspective. for
they,
sure.
they go, Mike's in one of the moves. It's Monday. I said, hey, y'all, come on now. You got a
Do it.
job today. We watched 100 people get riffed. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
You gotta be
point.
thankful.
That
You
is-
gotta
you,
be.
you,
true.
you
You
know,
gotta be
so like I
thankful and
take
grateful for your
Mondays
blessings.
as a day to be grateful for what I have and what I'm able to do. And it's why does it matter what day you're gonna be happy on? That's how I look at it. Like, I try
You're
every day to
getting
be
deep now,
happy,
huh? I
but
like
Monday
that.
is like, hey, we really starting today. So that's it.
Yeah.
I kind of went on a rant there, but let's just cap it off. Guys, gals, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. We appreciate you as we do every week. For listening to the podcast. Make sure you comment, subscribe, like. If you are a listener, please like on there, subscribe, put some hearts, whatever you want to do. And we'll see you next week. Until then, peace.